people.
That's right.
We resist privatization, and we publicly demand that the city, state, and federal government allocate billions of dollars immediately to repair and preserve our domiciles.
Yeah.
I am your facilitator. First up will be Letitia McNeil. She's a Holmes Towers resident and active member of the Holmes-Isaacs Coalition. Please receive her.
How are you?
Good morning, all. We are here today as a NYCHA whole with Fulton House, with other developments who are here and who couldn't be here. And we're here to just let all our elected officials know that NYCHA is in a very big deficit right now that is imperative that we get the funding that we need. We need billions of dollars to fund these repairs that we need that are going on in these apartments. There are deteriorating apartments that young children are living in, that elderly adults are living in, that just residents that are living in that is unimaginable that can be fixed with these fundings. I'm lost as to where the money is, so is everyone else. I don't understand how there's money to pay the workers, but there's no money to fund these repairs or fix our elevators or combat the rodent issue that's going on. If we do not find the money and get the funding that we need, NYCHA will no longer be, and that will increase the homeless rate that it is right now. So please, we're asking our elected officials, we're asking Mayor Bill de Blasio to please put NYCHA in their budget so we can get the funding that we need to move forth. Our children depend on it, our elderly residents depend on it, we have veterans that depend on it, we have retirees that depend on it. It's very important that we keep NYCHA public. We're going to fight, because housing is a human right.
Awesome. Thank you, Letitia McNeil. Next up, we have Ben Kallos, our New York City Council member covering the 5th Council District. Please receive him.
I want to start with a huge thank you for our facilitator, Sandrea Coleman. Can she get a huge round of applause? And another constituent who has been part of every single coalition I've been a part of since I got elected, who's brought her kids with her day in, day out, and in spite of whatever NYCHA tries to do to her, is always willing to speak truth to power on the steps of City Hall or on WPIX. Can we give a shout out and a huge thank you to Lakeisha Taylor?
Yeah.
The residents are showing people the way, and what I will also just say is when they proposed NextGen, I think the first time, I had some concerns. And I came out and I said, if you're going to do anything, you need to do it, one, with the consent of the residents, and consent means that a person gets to say no. And they get to say no at the beginning, they get to say no in the middle, they get to say no right before the end, they get to say no whenever. That's how consent works. You get to withdraw it. And I think the administration has a lot to learn about that. And along those lines, I don't feel that they've really honored that. Now, I came out for it, and at the same time as I was coming out for it, our Manhattan Borough President, Gale Brewer, came out for our tenants here at Holmes and Isaacs. And between the two of us, we've lawyered up, and she actually sued the mayor on this, and together, and there's another person. I don't know a Congress member in the United States Congress, whether in New York State or the entire country, who's done more to fight for NYCHA tenants than our Congress member, Carolyn Maloney, and she deserves a huge round of applause.
Yes.
I've been in a lot of public housing developments throughout our city, and I would say Holmes and Isaacs tend to be the ones where when I'm there with my congress member and our borough president, and folks know us because we're there so often. I think some of the other folks feel a little less love because of how much attention, but what you're doing with that attention, with the coalition and the fact that you do have 3 local elected officials, your congress member, your borough president, your council member, who will follow you when you lead, because we work for NYCHA residents.
Yes.
And what we're asking for is straightforward. It's something I've been fighting for as co-chair of the Progressive Caucus since I got elected, which is just simply, if the federal government, and Donald Trump ain't nothing, and he's not going to do anything, so they're out, and if the state won't do its part, then New York City needs to do its part. And when I got elected, we had a capital budget of $30 billion. And when somebody says NYCHA needs $30 billion, that's cool, because my credit card goes up to $90 billion. So we should just fully fund NYCHA out of the city's budget.
Yes.
Period. End of question.
Yes.
New York City can't continue to be a slumlord.
Thank you.
And it's starting to get cold out. We're already in the heating season, and we can't have another winter of people living in public housing, living in city housing, where city as a slumlord leaves people without heat and hot water. It's wrong. And we need to do better, and we need to start doing it now.
Yes.
So please, 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 if you know of anyone who's experiencing difficulties now, and Lakeisha, we have your back, but anyone else too, we will work with you to make sure that we head things off ahead of time before it gets down to below freezing and people are literally freezing in their homes. We need to make sure the elevators work. We go to Holmes and Isaacs Tenants Association meetings. If you didn't know about it, it's called Ben in Your Building. I literally will show up to your TA meetings, and we show up with reusable bags sometimes, or we pay for the barbecues. But the thing being that we will be there. We will be there to listen to you. And one of the things I hear from residents all the time is they have a doctor's appointment, they have a job interview, they have a job, and they try to go out, and the elevator's out. And now they have to walk down from 10 stories, 20 stories, and it just doesn't work. They're trapped in their homes, and they're not getting the medical care that they need. They're not getting the access to economics and jobs that they need. So there's a huge cost to this problem. I'm here with you and the Progressive Caucus to demand that they fully fund NYCHA, and I want to thank the tenants, because without you, we wouldn't be here on the steps. Thank you. And thank you for coming to First Friday every month.
Yes. Yes. Give another round of applause for our council member. He's been very active and been on the front lines with us since the infill project proposal at Holmes Towers since in 2015.
Which you won.
Right, which we won. Yes, so we do have a victory. Thank you for Manhattan Borough President for filing that lawsuit as well. Woo! Next up is Lakeisha Taylor. She's a Holmes Towers resident and the one of the co-founders of the Holmes-Isaacs Coalition. Please receive her.
Yeah. And a rock star.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone who came out. I appreciate you for being here. A crisis is defined as a time of intense difficulty, trouble, or danger. A turning point of disease when an important change takes place, indicating either recovery or death. This is the state of NYCHA. This is the state NYCHA is in right now.
True.
The tenants are in a state of crisis. Our homes are under attack. Our health is under attack.
Yes.
We are living in dangerous conditions. I want you to take a look at these pictures right here. These are the pictures of the tenants' homes. These are the pictures which we live in daily. These are pictures of people's bathrooms, people's living conditions. These are the pictures of the elevators. These are the pictures. I could have brought a list of how many times I call for the elevators, how many times people call for plastering. People are on these lists for years and months. It's unbelievable. It is dangerous. NYCHA's mission statement states it is to increase opportunities for low and moderate income New Yorkers by providing safe and affordable housing and facilitate access to social and community service. Sadly, NYCHA has not only fallen short of its mission, but it has doubled down with mold and mildew, elevator safety issues, pest infestation, and let's not forget the lead poisoning. This is the state of NYCHA. We are living in terrible, horrible conditions. What is very sad, NYCHA has decided it is trying to privatize, but it's not calling it privatization because they are giving companies a 99-year lease. I'm not going to live 99 years. My children maybe will live another 99 years. But again, what's going to happen? The odds are very high that they're going to lose their home. What are we going to do? The homeless population is out of control. This is sad because again, we pay our rent. Elderly people pay their rent. My children live in these conditions. What is this? What is the solution? I do not see any kind of budget cuts. I have not heard of mass firing. I have not heard of anyone saying that you are not doing your job. We have heard all about the problems in which that NYCHA has used our money for horrible conditions. We have heard all about the problems because guess what? We live these problems. These are our problems that we live every day. We've lived them. This is our life, but there are no real solutions. We hear about the money that NYCHA leaves on the table. We hear about the problems in which NYCHA takes the lowest bidder every single time, and these are the results of the lowest bidder. We are sad and we are tired of being tossed aside. We want better conditions. We demand better conditions. These are our lives. We deserve better. We are paying our rent. We are having other people pay our rents for us. We deserve better. There are people who work. There are people who are disability. There are people who are retired. We are doing what we are supposed to do. Therefore, we demand better living conditions. Right. We demand repairs in a timely fashion. This is unacceptable. We ask that all politicians stand with us as a united front. All of NYCHA demands this because RAD, infill, PAC are all unacceptable solutions because in the end, we will all end up homeless because if we make one infraction, we will have to be homeless. That is the truth of the matter because these are all nothing but smoke screens to end up homeless. Because why should you turn over something that you have not taken care of, which was your responsibility in the first place? And this is something that as a whole we need to realize that we are not less than. We are entitled to, as tenants of NYCHA, we are entitled to everything as anyone as a tenant in the private sector. So as a tenant of NYCHA, we demand that we get the same respect as every single tenant. Just because we are living in a NYCHA tenant, the new homes that are being built are 40, 60, are not for us because as a parent, a single parent working 2 jobs, that is not going to work because we are living paycheck to paycheck. So what is going to happen again? That is going to only make you homeless again. So again, as a NYCHA tenant, we demand a better solution. All right. Thank you.
Once again, thank you, Lakeisha Taylor, for those words, for the photos, for all that you said in regards to how many of the NYCHA tenants are living. Next up, we have Luis Flores, founder of Fight for NYCHA. Luis Flores, please receive him.
Thank you so much for being here, everybody. This fight is going to continue to grow. It's growing and it's going to continue to grow. And it's growing because of the more information that people find out about what's happening in NYCHA, people are getting outraged. Exactly what Lakeisha said I want to touch base on. the mayor and the governor, the governor, every politician here, they're responsible. They have an obligation to provide safe and sanitary housing. That was why NYCHA was created in 1934. That was its original mission. They have an obligation, and they're violating their obligation. They have a duty, and they're breaching their duty. And that's what's happening here, is the politicians are turning their backs on people. And I understand people don't understand why is no one being held accountable? Where is the money? A lot of the blame falls on the politicians, but as I always continue to say, a lot of the blame also falls on the U.S. Attorney. For years they were investigating NYCHA. They settled a lawsuit with the city without providing the money necessary to fully fund NYCHA. That means they threw NYCHA tenants under the bus. They closed the lawsuit without funding NYCHA. And what the mayor is doing is very disingenuous. It's on the border of being sociopathic, because what he's doing is he's telling NYCHA tenants, what do you want to do? But he's the one who's obligated to make sure that NYCHA's fully funded, and he's having these meetings, and he's not providing the money. And what he's setting up for is for a trap, because he's saying, if you want your repairs, how are you going to pay for them? And what the mayor is leaving off the table is the fact that he's the one who controls the city budget. Him, along with the council speaker and the chair of the finance committee, they control the city budget. But they're not the ones who are showing up when people are calling for NYCHA to be fully funded. They're turning their backs on the people. As a result of what the mayor is doing, Fight for NYCHA filed a complaint with the U.S. Attorney. This is the same guy who turned his back on NYCHA, but we're going to hold him accountable. Right. And if need be, we're going to go to court. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Right.
Thank you again, Luis Flores. He is definitely on the battlefield. Fight for NYCHA, right? Next up, we have Shelby Gardner, a representative from Congresswoman Maloney's office. Please receive him.
Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, who couldn't be here today on account of her new role in the impeachment process as the acting chair of the Committee on Government Oversight and Reform, asked me to read a brief statement of hers. I'm here today to discuss New York City's public housing crisis. The New York City Housing Authority has not taken the necessary steps to ensure safe, sanitary, and functional housing to its residents. A large part of this issue is a lack of funding. Despite its capital need of $32 billion over 5 years, NYCHA received only $549 million for fiscal year 2019. NYCHA's infill plan to combat the funding crisis through the construction of luxury buildings on NYCHA property is neither practical nor effective. I have successfully opposed the infill projects at Cooper Park and Holmes Towers for several reasons. The infill projects would not generate enough revenue to account for the lack of funding at these facilities. For example, at Holmes Towers, the project was set to generate only $25 million, well short of Holmes' 5-year capital needs of nearly $59 million. Only 30% of the units on Holmes Towers property would be affordable, leaving working-class New Yorkers to live in the shadow of wealthy elites. Simply put, the infill plan is unreasonable, impractical, and unfair to NYCHA residents. They would sacrifice their peace, quiet, green spaces, and playgrounds for a project that would not enact tangible changes. Increases to the Public Housing Capital Fund would enable NYCHA-run facilities to improve heating, infrastructure, upgrade elevators, and address the presence of mold and lead in 2,000 apartments citywide. This is why I'm an original co-sponsor of Rep. Velázquez's bill, the Public Housing Emergency Response Act, which would provide $70 billion into the Public Housing Capital Fund. This is $20 to $30 billion more than HUD receives each year for all of their housing-related issues, and it covers the cost of all the necessary capital repairs. I'm calling on NYCHA to work with the Federal Monitor and with NYCHA residents to identify and address the many issues currently facing their agency. All eyes are on NYCHA, and we must continue to hold them accountable to their residents. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we thank you for Congresswoman Maloney sending you with a written statement. We really appreciate it, and she has been with us on the front line since the beginning as well in 2015 with the infill project that was proposed at Holmes Towers, which we did win. Next up, we have Jose Guerrero from Holmes-Isaacs Coalition, and one of the co-founders, and he's also a resident of Holmes Towers. Please receive him.
How you doing? Hi.
Hey.
We were brought here under one theme: stand with us. Okay? You heard that thing, stand with us, right?
Yes.
But I'm going to change it today, just a little bit. I want to change it to understand with us.
Yeah.
Okay? Sorry, I get emotional every little time. That's why I try not to speak. I let my professionals speak here. And I want you to understand one thing, that all of NYCHA is unified, okay? There's not one development that we don't care about, because what affects people in Brooklyn affects us here in Manhattan. We are all together. There's one thing that really, you know, like, I don't know if you could pan up there, but where is she? She's probably there. She goes. Miss McGee. Raise your hand, Miss McGee.
All right.
Miss McGee has this theme that she puts things together. She says to her, folks over at Fulton Houses, I want to see it, and then everybody else says, we want to see it, right? So, if there was a good song for NYCHA tenants to sing is, I want to see it, we want to see it, come on everybody, where's the money, I want to see it,
We want to see it.
come on NYCHA, where's the money, come on Mayor de Blasio, put it out. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jose. Jose went from I'm not speaking, I'm speaking, I'm not speaking to bring me up. So he's speaking and singing. Thank you, Jose. Great job, great job. We appreciate you. Next up, we have Cave. I don't have the last name, I apologize. From the Justice Center in El Barrio. Please receive him.
Good morning, everyone. I'm with the Justice Center in El Barrio, and we're gathered here not as a consequence of something that happened today or yesterday or last week, but of a decades-long process to strangle and ultimately destroy public housing in the United States. This has been happening over the last few decades, the defunding of NYCHA and HUD as well. But over this same period, NYCHA has been forking over $75 million of its annual budget to NYPD to conduct vertical patrols of NYCHA buildings. And this theft of NYCHA money is the type of patrol that led to the killing of Akai Gurley in 2014 by the killer cop Peter Liang.
Wow. Yeah.
This theft, which happened without the consent of NYCHA tenants, is the core of the lie that there's no money to fund NYCHA. And this is a lie, that's not just blatantly incorrect and false, but it's also an insult to our intelligence, because they act like we don't know that they just passed a new legislation here to fund new jails to the tune of $11 billion. Or that Mayor de Blasio is calling for $40 million for 500 new cops in the subways. After we all just saw that video of that young man being brutally arrested in Brooklyn. So this whole idea that there's no money for NYCHA is a disgusting lie, and it's an insult to us. But that's exactly what NYCHA and Bill de Blasio want. They want NYCHA to deteriorate, so then they can just say, "Oh, well, look, it's falling apart. We got to privatize. We got to hand it over to these private developers." And make no mistake, these private developers are drooling at the prospect of privatizing NYCHA.
Right.
Because that's valuable land. It's worth $1 trillion. It's worth $1 trillion. So we have to defend public housing, because this is really the last stand for working families in New York. It's the last place that's affordable, and we know that rents aren't going down anywhere in this country. And we can't count on the politicians to intervene or stop this, because, you know, whether they're Republican or Democrat, red or blue, they always answer to green. They answer to money, and they answer to the real estate developers.
Facts.
And this isn't just a problem in New York either. It's a nationwide problem. I used to live in DC, same problem there. It's the same problem in San Francisco. And we have to ask ourselves, who's to blame? You know, on one hand, it is de Blasio's fault here in New York City, but we can't just go pointing fingers at individual politicians, because this is a system. It's a system that builds houses and allocates houses based on profit. You can't even suggest building a house unless you can determine that it'll make a profit. And that's capitalism. It's a housing for profit scheme.
Come on.
But it doesn't have to be this way.
Right.
It doesn't. We look 90 miles south of Florida to Cuba, a country that's been under a 59-year economic blockade by the United States. Guarantees housing to all Cuban people as a right in the Constitution. You look to Venezuela, which also is under a disgusting genocidal economic blockade by the United States government. The Great Venezuelan Housing Mission constructed 2.8 million homes for working class Venezuelans, despite this blockade. So don't tell me that there's no funding here in the richest country, in the richest city on this planet. That's ridiculous. It's a lie. It's an insult. Fund NYCHA now.
Go ahead, Kay, from the Justice Center in El Barrio. Powerful. He took us a little global, right? Yeah. Okay, so we can really visualize what's going on. That's right. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Diego de la Vega, a representative from New York State Assembly member Robert J. Rodriguez office. Please receive him.
Thank you, Sophia. So Robert was traveling today. He couldn't make it, but he expresses his excitement at the organizing from NYCHA tenants. There was a time when public housing was fully funded, maintained, and dignified, and this is no longer the case. When we speak of this investment, we speak of working class neglect. 400,000 public housing tenants at least are neglected by all levels of government, and our tenants must live with lead in their walls, mold inside their walls, freezing cold in their apartments, with no hot water, no heat, no gas, and no security to live with dignity in their own homes. For decades, the question of preserving the homes of 400,000 New Yorkers has been a can kick down the road based on a false idea that there are no funding sources. This is not the case. The funding is there, and it must be taken from the wealth class. Assemblymember Rodriguez introduced a bill that would reform a property tax abatement for the top 10% of luxury condo and co-ops. Instead of returning those millions of dollars back to luxury homeowners, that revenue can be raised to over $3 billion and used directly for capital funding. But bills like these will not pass on their own. These efforts will be spearheaded by working class tenants who demand reinvestment, the end of neglect, and the restoration of dignified and proud public housing. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, thank you, Diego de la Vega, and representative from the New York State Assembly member Robert Rodriguez. We appreciate the support of our elected officials, because at the end of the day, constituents matter. We are the ones that vote these elected officials in. And I'm going to stand here today and tell you, if they do not do what you want them to do for your better living conditions and everything, your safety, vote them out. Do not support them. They don't deserve your support if they're not going to show up, if they're not going to stand with us, all of us, not just NYCHA residents, all of New York City. If you're not standing with us, if you're against us, you're not for us, and you have to go. And we are going to hold elected officials accountable, right? Yeah. Vote them out. Vote them out. Vote them out.
Vote them out.
Next up, we have Myrna Halasa, I hope I'm saying her name right, founder of Community Control of Land Use Group. Please receive her.
Thank you, don't worry about it. Hi, my name's Marnie. I just wanted to talk about the mayor's working group. So there's a working group. Which one? Both of them. There's a working group that's been assembled right now, so the tenants can have more of a say in kind of the process in terms of privatization, RAD. The tenants that I know, many of them in the back of me, are against any privatization, no demolition of buildings, no RAD, no infill, no air rights, nothing. So that's been the prevailing sentiment. So the working group is supposed to actually bring the tenants in so they can actually have a say in kind of what's going on. Last Tuesday, Fight for NYCHA and many of the tenants back here were refused access to the mayor's working group. So the Mayor de Blasio's plan is to privatize 62,000 apartments, NYCHA apartments. So that's 1/3 of NYCHA public housing stock. And I think the working group needs to encompass many from all developments, all NYCHA tenants from all the developments. And so we were shut out. There were some like 4 or 5 little old grannies from Harborview that were pissed as hell, screaming at the door. They had to have 4 policemen basically stop us, and especially the raging grannies. So we believe that it's a sham, and that the working group needs to accommodate all tenants, that are interested in going to the working group from all the developments. That's number one. And I just thought it was unconscionable because they sort of treated us like common criminals, and that's not a good thing. But anyways, onwards and upwards, and these tenants I know say no to any sort of privatization, and the de Blasio administration needs to find the money to fully fund NYCHA.
Thank you so much for those words of encouragement and information. We appreciate it. Next up, we have Denali Rodriguez, an organizer from the Justice for All Coalition. He's about to bring some fire and some pain, I think. Please receive him.
I'm gonna put my bag down because I got enough weighing me down when it comes to NYCHA. So my name is Denali Rodriguez. I'm with the Justice for All Coalition. We empower tenants throughout NYCHA and Western Queens, where we have the highest concentration of public housing throughout the country. Queensbridge, Ravenswood, Astoria, and Woodside housing projects. So here's the thing, a little bit more about me. I'm an Astoria native, born in Harlem, raised in Queens, and throughout the years, my parents were faced with increased rent, time and time again, drastic increases in rent. And they were lucky enough to actually hit the lottery on a Section 8 apartment. They finally moved in. Finally, they had affordable housing. But what was the cost? Now they were living in deplorable conditions, without heat, mold, lack of hot water, and it wasn't unique to my mother. It was building wide. So when they try to sell you this RAD conversion from Section 9 to Section 8, I can tell you right now, it is not all it's cracked up to be.
Come on,
all right? First and foremost, we say no to RAD for that very reason. And I look around my mother's building and I can't help but recognize the majority of the tenants, their demographic, who they are. They are black and brown folk. Wow. And this public housing issue is a racial justice issue because 90% of NYCHA tenants are black and brown. Mi gente habla.
Yeah, sí.
Do it. No es justo. Sinceramente, it is not just that the city does not care about black and brown folks. What the city invests in is a statement to their values. It tells you what they care about. Just recently, as fellow comrades mentioned. They passed $11 billion to fund new jails throughout the city.
Right. Right.
So wait. The city cares more about putting people in jail than ensuring they have dignified, quality homes? How is that acceptable in the 21st century?
Unacceptable.
Is that acceptable?
No.
Absolutely not. In addition to that, they're talking about funding a whole new city in Queens, Sunnyside Yards now. When just a half a mile away, Queensbridge, the largest housing projects in the country, is just disintegrating away. So you want to fund homes for the rich so that developers can profit, but people have to live in freezing temperatures?
Right.
That's unacceptable. Again, what the city chooses to invest in is a statement of what they care about, and they don't care about us.
No.
They do not care about us.
Yeah, about money.
So now, this is the funny thing. There are politicians saying that, oh no, funding new jails and funding NYCHA aren't mutually exclusive. We can do both. The problem is they're funding jails, but they're not funding homes. So I don't want to hear none of that. We don't want to hear none of that.
No.
La gente es más importante que la cárcel.
Exactamente. Dile, mano.
Yeah.
That is
Somos lo importante.
Exacto.
Somos los que pagamos renta, pagamos pase.
Yep.
Tienen en la minoría pisado.
So, as the brother said,
Come on.
we pay the rent, we pay the taxes, we have the power. Who has the power?
We have the power.
Who has the power?
We have the power.
Who has the power?
We have the power.
Fund NYCHA now. All power to the tenants, all power to the people. Thank you.
Si tienen dinero para la cárcel,
Fund NYCHA now. 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 Fund NYCHA.
Told y'all he was gonna bring some pain. Thank you so much, Mr. Rodriguez. I don't want to mess your name up again.
You got it. You got it.
Thank you all for coming out and standing with us. You all show that public housing tenants matter. We are in a crisis. When you don't have no heat, when you don't have no hot water, when you have inoperable elevators, when you have living in unsafe, hazardous conditions, lead poisoning, it's a problem. And why is the city of New York allowing its tenants to live that way? We pay our rent, we pay our taxes, and we deserve better living conditions. Not in a 10-year span with like $2 billion, $250 million a year. No, we don't want, we need billions of dollars now for the repairs. Not tomorrow, not over the next 10 years. We need it now. There is a crisis in public housing. We do not want infill. We do not want red. We do not want pack. We don't want our parking lots taken away. We do not want our playgrounds taken away. We want our land. We want our land. No demolition. We want our land. We want our sun. We want our air. We don't want cranes falling on us. We know things happen. It is time for the mayor of New York to do what he needs to do and fund NYCHA now. Put the money up now, not over these years. Enough is enough. 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 We're done. We're coming for your their offices. We are not playing anymore. We had enough.
Yep.
If you can't represent us, you need to get off that seat, give up that office, and let somebody that's going to really do what they need to do for their constituents. Thank you for coming out.
We will vote you out. We will vote you out. We will vote you out. We will vote you out. We will vote